selling cars, shall we? Enough about TARP, bailouts, etc. Let's actually talk about selling cars. How do you do it if you're GM and or Chrysler? With all of America knows your financial problems. Joining us now, Julie Roehm. She's a consumer analyst and marketing expert. Spent 12 years marketing in the auto industry, 7 at Ford, 5 at Chrysler. So this is also a personal story for you because I'm sure you still have some friends there. I'm not trying to be quippy about it, but I mean, if you're Chrysler, and this is on the headlines of all the papers, not just business. I mean, what do? Hey, we may not exist in a couple of months, buy a Dodge anyway. How do you sell cars in this environment?
Yeah, I was in Detroit this past weekend, and it's certainly a very somber place to be right now. And I think that the latest news and the 30-day deadline for Chrysler, 60 days for GM, is a difficult one. I mean, they've been in talks with Fiat for months, but if it doesn't happen in 30 days, poof, they could just be gone just like that. I do think, though, we have a lot of good examples out there of how you can make lemonade from the lemons. Circuit City, for instance. I mean, how did they do in their last days of sale? When we knew that they were going away, people went in, they bought, there was a question of warranty.
But that's the death gas. That's the liquidation.
But if there's a death gas, that's what happens. If, in the case of GM, and if they're around, but let's go to GM, who I do believe is going to be around in some form or fashion, whether they go into bankruptcy or not. When United filed for bankruptcy, we got on their airplanes and flew the very next day. The difference, I think, here is that we've got backing from the government on warranties. That's usually the big question if a company is going to go away. Well, who's going to fix my car?
Well, Julie, at the start of this press conference, before they even started taking questions, they came out and said, let's tell you about this new total confidence plan, where over 2 years, they're going to make up to 9 payments if you lose your job. They're trying to hold up, if you buy a car on financing, they're going to hold up the value of it over a certain period of time. They're going to great lengths to say, buy our cars, we're behind them.
Right. And I think that's an important step. You have to give people confidence that, there's a lot of uncertainty between Chrysler, between GM. Even though Ford isn't taking money, they get lumped in with the rest of them.
But do you address the issue? There's a Saturn commercial running, which I think is terrible. They got a dealer who's like, hey, we're still here. That's what he says in the commercial. I'm thinking, some people might not even know you have problems. Now you've just told them. If you're Chrysler and GM, do you say to the American people, hey, we got serious financial problems, but still buy our car? Do you address it?
I think that you can't hide it, but I don't think that you have to be overt and say, hey, look, everybody knows it's the worst it's ever been, but still.
You've seen the Saturn commercials I'm talking about. Do you agree? I mean, are they good?
Yeah, no, I don't think that it is good, because I think it's we're still here. It implies though, but we might not be tomorrow, so you better hurry while we're here.
Yeah, it's like business is the best kept secret. You don't want to be the best kept secret. You want to be the best known.
I don't think that's a good thing, but I do think that the open communication, and because I am absolutely not suggesting that you don't address it. What I do think has been missing from both GM, Ford, Chrysler is that they haven't actually involved the consumer. There's so much frustration out there. Nobody knows what they're doing. There is no clear message. And if they opened up the platform and took messages,
but GM and Chrysler have involved the consumer, because for months they were screaming about how you need to bail us out. We need money. We're on the rocks. Come in, help us, but you can't let us go bankrupt. And again, all that talk, did that permanently damage these brands to the point you can't market your way out of it?
I think it did damage the brands quite a bit, but the kind of communication I was talking about is really consumer up, not just this force of this message coming right from Detroit. I think you got 60% of the people did not support any more bailout to Detroit. What I think has to happen is you've got this frustration. You get blogged. I get a ton of messages from people who know that I'm talking about auto. They have so many ideas. I think GM and Chrysler and Ford all need to start to listen so that the people feel involved. Whether they act on anything that is said or not, I think it's really important that America feels much more involved, that they're being listened to, and something is being done to involve them.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You would know a lot more about this, but cars, at least in my family, maybe yours, have been relationship things.
Absolutely.
My dad pretty much only buys GM cars.
Yep.
We've never owned a Ford. Airlines, you just go for the cheapest price. I don't care what airline I fly for the most part, just looking for the cheapest fare. How does it change the relationship with people? Lifelong Chrysler buyers, lifelong GM buyers.
Yes. No, there's no question about it. There's a huge loyalty factor to cars, although that has dwindled to a huge extent.
It has dwindled already.
Oh, God. For the past 10, 15 years, when I was there, we saw loyalty numbers decline all the time, because there were a lot more choices than there used to be back when your dad was buying cars. There weren't that many choices. Today, we have 2-3 times the number of choices.
They focus on hanging on to the customers whose dealers are closing. like all those U.S. dealers that are shutting down.
You know, I think it
My
is important.
hometown, for example.
And I do think that your point about the loyalty factor is important. And I think people want America to win, but they've got to be given a reason. This sort of one-way messaging is not going to cut it in the long term. It's not.
All right, Julie Roehm, marketing expert, thank you very much. I'm sure it's tough for a lot of your former coworkers at Chrysler. All right, break.